I am a thinker. My mind runs marathons on a daily basis. Like if we could make thinking a Olympic sport, I would have a multitude of gold medals because my mind runs and it 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 goes and it goes and it goes and it goes. That is what my mind does. And I've come to realize that there are many just like me. I am not alone. E.T. found home. I am not alone when it comes to this perpetual running mind. As a matter of fact, I've come to realize that this is actually more natural in the human condition than anything else. If you went to most people, you would find that more people are overthinkers than those who are quote unquote underthinkers, right? Maybe it's more feelers, but even if you're a feeler, there are thoughts that are ruling your emotions. So technically, you are still a thinker and a perpetual thinker. So when you find yourself in a state where you are finally feel as if you've had it, you're done, you're at your end, you can't take it no more because it's affecting everything in your life. It's not just sleep anymore. It's literally every activity in your life. And maybe this is something that you experienced since you were a child, or maybe it's something that you start to develop later in life where you feel as if your thoughts have control over you. Your thoughts have dominion, rulership over you, and they rule with an iron fist. I understand that, and I not only understand it, I empathize with it because this is the life that I lived for a decade plus. In fact, it led me into addiction at a certain point in my life. Between the ages of around 14 to 19, I was high every day. That was the life that I was living. I was in the streets and doing certain stuff. I didn't live in the streets. My parents are African, so they wouldn't dare throw me out the house, but I was still a junkie within a home, and, RIP to a lot of my closest friends, but some of them didn't make it out on the other side. And so this ain't to be a downer video, by the way, but I'm just, I'm letting this be known. And so on the other side of that addiction, that's actually how I found personal development. And I started really trying to find a new identity for myself. Now, in hindsight, I knew I was finding or looking for identity. But at the time, I just knew that I needed something that was an alternative to the life I was living before. A complete 180. And that's exactly what happened. I have a miraculous type of story where I cold turkeyed everything. I got off everything, not even going into rehab, et cetera, right? I just unidentified with the lifestyle that I was in. And I'll tell you guys a story eventually, probably on some type of interview on somebody else's podcast when they ask the question. But in essence, I found myself in a place where my thoughts were transitioning. Now, I was an overthinker with an overstimulated negative mind. And then my mind started to go to a more positive mind due to the content that I was consuming on a regular basis. And of course, I picked up, meditation along the way and things of that nature, which we will touch upon. But in essence, what I realized was my mind had not stopped thinking or producing thoughts. The difference was I started going from negative thoughts into positive thoughts. And I started realizing that, wait, my thoughts are not actually my enemy. My thoughts, if they're positive, are working for me if I have more powerful, empowering thoughts. Not just quote unquote positive as in good thinking or quote unquote positive thinky, right? I'm talking about like truly empowering belief systems. Once I started getting new belief systems under me, I started realizing that my life was changing almost second nature, like as a byproduct of my thinking. Now, of course, now I understand how these processes work because I've dedicated my entire life to finding out exactly what happened to me, exactly how I came to be the person that I now am, and like the processes behind it. And there are processes. This is universal law we're talking about. But again, at the time, all I knew was that I had negative thoughts and they were perpetual, running marathons. And now I have more positive thoughts, marathons, more positive. And now I'm at a state where my thoughts are literally my absolute engine. My thoughts work for me. My thoughts work as a propeller into my destiny continuously. And again, it wasn't always this way. It's even been within the last year or a little bit more than a year where it's truly been the most empowering and impactful because I've also been the most intentional about using my thoughts or using my belief systems, which are the repeated thoughts that I have, into the most powerful, empowering beliefs possible. And so I'm here to tell my fellow overthinkers, my overstimulated in the mind, that it is not about stopping your thoughts. We're never going to stop our thoughts. Thoughts are a part of the human condition, the human process, because thoughts are the creative factor, the creative faculty of life. Our thoughts are here to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to create our very own existence. That's what thoughts are here to do. Point blank. Your thoughts are to create your life. So a multitude of us, many of us were raised in situations and circumstances from childhood where we were indoctrinated or conditioned with thoughts that were disempowering, negative thoughts, negative belief systems, right? Our foundation of what we believed about the world was disempowering. And so those thoughts started to rule our lives. And again, they just did their job. They became the attractors and the manifestors of our physical experience. Now think about that. If you have negative thoughts, perpetual negative thoughts being pumped into your head all day, every single day by the entirety of your environment at an age where you're so susceptible, you are a sponge, you are soaking up every piece of information around you, whether verbal or nonverbal, you become a machine that regulates or drives itself off of negativity. And therefore, your thinking machine is running off of a fuel that we call negative thinking. And that is what actually gets in the way. That's what truly breaks our heart. That's the thing that brings us into place of anxiety and depression. And again, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm a practitioner, right? Psychologist, psychiatrist, I'm a me-iatrist, right? I know the science of me. I study myself on a daily basis, and I go into the inner crevices of my mind, and I discover aspects of myself that I didn't know were there, and I shift them and I change them, and I'm the alchemist of me. So that being said, I started to delve into my negative thought processes. I started to delve into like these beliefs that I had about myself that would keep me up. Like there's a reason why I was staying up every night with insomnia and felt I needed to smoke in order for me to go to sleep. There was a reason for that. It's because my perpetual thinking my habit of thinking was so negative, was so filled with paranoia, or was so filled with worry. What's going to happen? What if this happens to my parents? What if that happens to these people? What if this happens to me? What if this, then this, and this happens, and then that happens, and then this happens, and this happens, and that happens? What then? What do I do when all these things happen? And I was absolutely tormented, terrified. I didn't know what to do with myself. But again, unconsciously, when I got out of that world, I got out of that space, I started filling my mind with different types of information. And I remember a day, I was 19 years old, and this might sound weird, but I remember the day I realized like I could stop and start a thought. I was in the downstairs parking lot of a fancy little place out here in the Bay Area called Santana Row. And I was listening to some Tony Robbins video, and he was very new to me at the time. And he said something about, you being able to control your thoughts. And I promise you, it was like a light bulb literally went off my head. I felt myself stop a thought intentionally and then pick up another thought. And it was the strangest thing I had ever experienced. I remember it to today, and that was almost a decade ago. Damn, time is going fast. Almost a decade ago. And so in that moment, I realized, wow, there's my ability to control this. Now, of course, everything didn't change that day. It wasn't like all of a sudden now, everything is working for me. I'm the universal force. I am, Gohan or Goku out of Dragon Ball Z with all these levels of Super Saiyan. It wasn't none of that at first. At first, it was simply identifying that this was what was going on mentally, that my thoughts were truly of my own. My consciousness was not something happening to me, but actually happening as a byproduct of me. Now, again, it took then years for me to really discover the things that were truly going on. But in that process, my mind was being renewed through the new information. I was now becoming addicted to positive, empowering information, self-help information, and eventually spiritual information, right? No longer like conspiracy theories and stuff like that, which just feeds and perpetuates the fear, but like true spiritual, like understanding of thyself and discovery of thyself, self-mastery, those type of concepts. And so I bring this back to you to really, first of all, free you from this idea that your thoughts are going to stop at some point. That's not the purpose of your thought process. It's not to stop your thoughts. And to be frank with you, it's not even necessarily just to slow down your thoughts. Like when you start to meditate and getting in any type of meditative process, you'll realize that you become more aware of your thoughts and your negative thoughts have less and less and less and less power until Some of them have no power at all. Those thoughts that you believed were ruling over your life begin to have very little, if no control over any aspect of your life. Again, once you dedicate yourself to meditation. But what I realized was, even in the meditation, it wasn't that the thoughts were completely stopping, right? Just to stop and be gone forever. Like they would slow down and I would become very vigilant of each thought. And then more, it's almost like time was slowing down as opposed to like the thoughts are stopping, right? You can see them more succinctly and now you're choosing certain thoughts in real time, just like you're making a decision, should I eat this or eat that, right? When you become an individual who builds a habit of eating healthy, you're able to almost see like your decision in real time. Like you see the cake and you see the asparagus in slow motion and you're able to pick the asparagus with greater ease, right? With less effort. It's not a frantic decision where you're impulsively just stuffing your hand into that cake. That's the same thing that happens with us internally within our consciousness, within our mindset or our psychology, is we become more aware of that process and we become more intentional and start to build that habit where it becomes easier and easier to pick the thoughts that are more empowering. So that being said, we are truly the deciders of the focus of our thoughts. There's nobody doing anything outside of us. There's nobody pressing buttons for our life to think for us. We think that God is this being that is like forcing thoughts upon us. That's not necessarily true. The universal consciousness, the quantum realm, the all source, God, whatever you want to call that creator of all of life, always has a consistent frequency where there are messages that are being perpetually stated, right? You are loved, you're deserving, you are worthy, you are abundant. All these things at the highest frequency are consistently there for us to be able to access. But when we're at a low frequency or at a fear state or any of those low vibrations or low emotions, we're not able to access those thoughts. But when we allow ourselves to raise up within our emotions, energy and motion, which is through the thoughts that we pick, because our emotions are a direct correlation to the thoughts that we're choosing, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, we then raise our vibration and we tap into different types of thoughts. So the thoughts, again, aren't happening for you. You're literally choosing them. It's like you're on a radio station and you're turning the dial to a specific station. It's the very same thing. You're choosing what station you want to be on and you get the messages that are at that station. So again, our thoughts are our most powerful tool in life because they allow us to create life. And when we focus our thoughts on more empowering, more positive thoughts, true thoughts, thoughts of God, if you would say, that is when we start to feel the power of those thoughts. Like we are the most powerful being in existence. Human beings are powerful. And I know you're going to say aliens, this, that. No, we're the most powerful within our own reality. You are the most powerful being within your own reality. I'm the most powerful within my own reality. My brother writes down every morning, I'm the most powerful person in my life because I decide or I create my reality through my thoughts. Something like that, right? I got to ask him to reframe it for me. But you are essentially the most powerful being within your own reality, point blank. And so only you can make the decisions necessary. Only you can decide whether or not you're going to choose disempowering thoughts or more empowering thoughts or empowering thoughts, not even just more empowering, the empowering thoughts. Only you can decide to build a new habit or not. And again, it won't necessarily feel comfortable at first. You might feel like you're lying to yourself, but you did not believe all the beliefs that you have now when they first started. Like when you were a kid and somebody told you couldn't do something, you fought that belief or you fought that thought until you started to internalize it. And once you internalize it, then you started to believe it. Then you started to manifest it as your physical experience. Then you started to justify it because now it was a part of your quote unquote reality. When in truth, you were just simply choosing one belief over another. And beliefs are as fluid as water. And we have the decision to choose a new belief system if we make the decision to no longer be so in love with the old belief systems. That's simple. I know it sounds almost like naive or childlike, but it is. Because in this universe, there are children and there are old people. There are people who can read and there are more people who cannot read. And so the universe has to work in a way where everybody can understand these principles and laws in order to function. And in most cases, the ones who don't read sometimes have more wisdom and understanding than those who read the most, because they're usually tapping in directly to the source, right? It's not to say don't read or anything like that. I'm just saying, when you allow yourself to step away from the beliefs of your society, the beliefs that you have perpetuated and internalized about yourself, and you decide just to open your consciousness a little bit, you will be surprised at what will happen and how fast it will happen. I promise you this. So I'm going to wrap this one up. And I'm probably going to make a part 2 to this. So you guys let me know what was the most valuable. And also if you have the most any question, what was most valuable to you? And if you have any questions, let that be known in the comment section below. Make sure that you move your finger right there. Boom, boom, boom. Move your finger to that subscribe button. Then click it. Click. Boom. Perfect. You click the subscribe. Perfect. Now move your finger over to that like button. Ding, ding, ding. Boom. Like the video. It don't cost you anything. Not even a dime. At least not yet. So boom. Subscribe. Boom. Like. And then follow along the journey, because this is your journey. I make these for you. I make these as the greatest investment that you will make for you. Point blank. That being said, love you guys. It is time for me to wrap. I am out of here. I need some water and some ice in that immediately, because California is heating up. Peace.